hustle is real, but with hard work, you can become successful. And be your own king. Your wins are worth celebrating with Chelsea London Dry Gin. Chelsea London Dry Gin now comes in a non-refillable bottle with guala cap. Chelsea London Dry Gin. Right spirit, right feeling.
Africa's unemployment rate was projected at about 7%, with South Africa leading with about 30% of that margin on the continent. We're being joined by Dr. Dana Kabani from Zambia this morning, who is himself the CEO, DNK General Consultancy, and who is a solutions provider for business startups and also a pharmacist. Good afternoon, Dr. Kabani. Thanks for joining us this afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much, and good afternoon to all the viewers that are with us across the globe.
How is Zambia today?
Zambia is very fine. We are getting some good rain this year. We had a drought last year. Otherwise, we are okay.
Oh wow, that must be great news. Right, so we want to look at the case of unemployment on the continent. The statistics are quite staggering, with several millions of young persons, the productive, what would I call them, demography now unemployed on the continent. So we want to look into why this is so. But generally, in your interface, especially with startups, what's the case for unemployment on the continent?
Okay, so unemployment currently is a huge challenge on the African continent, especially when we look at sub-Saharan Africa. North Africa seems to be doing fine, but sub-Saharan Africa is quite challenged. And within the space of small and medium enterprises, there is often also a challenge that most of the businesses are struggling to thrive. Very few of them manage to cross the 3.5 years mark for them to become established. And these challenges may come from such issues as lack of financing, challenges in terms of accessing financing, ecosystems that don't really sustain the growth of small and medium enterprises. This in itself trickles down in these small businesses, failing to create employment, and yet they are the major players in terms of employment across the continent.
Okay, so we know that only 1 in 6 African youths are actually employed. And when I even say employed, wage employed for that matter, because on the continent, the number that actually makes for what a lot of people call employment is either self-employment or they're privately employed, which also counts for something. What are some of the indices that are causative factors for unemployment on the continent?
Okay, so some of the factors that are actually leading to unemployment goes to such things as, education job mismatch. So we are currently generating a number of graduates of whom much of them do not possess the skills that the current economies are looking for. You're going to realize that much of the young people that are going through our universities, they graduate, and when they come to look for jobs, if you are an employer, you will realize that they actually need to be retrained for them to possess the basic skills that are needed for them to perform the jobs that are currently on the market. So skills mismatch in terms of education is contributing to unemployment. Another thing contributing to this is insufficient industrialization. I should mention that personally, I've been an advocate for Africa to undergo industrialization. When the whole globe was undergoing industrial revolution, we as Africa did not go through it. Unfortunately, we have had to leap into now the digital revolution, without going through industrialization at the level of mechanizing and automating most of the processes. Industrialization in Europe came with job creation because, agriculture was industrialized. You look at transport and logistics was industrialized. Food production was done. Africa missed this. And because we missed this, we are importing things. We are simply generating raw materials without value addition. We send them over to the West for value addition, and these things come back. But we should understand that where value addition happens, that is where jobs are created. So right in Europe, where our coffee is processed, right in Europe, where you get our minerals processed, our timber processed, that is where jobs are created. So until we localize value addition as African countries, we will not see a rise in job creation and a drop in unemployment. I should also mention that political instability is another contributing factor to unemployment because of the instability that is created. When nations are unstable because of war and such things, investors don't move in. So if you look at countries like Congo, among others, Somalia, and many others that have been at war for many years, these countries don't get investors coming in because it is a risk to any investor. And by so doing, you see that unemployment goes up because you are failing to get investors, even both local and foreign investors coming in to establish industries that should create employment. Another factor is actually weak policy implementation. Many of our governments have good policies, which are normally not implemented to the latter. When you actually, when you decide to look through this issue, you're going to realize, for example, very few countries have what is called an SME policy, as an example, a policy that would look at developing, small and medium enterprises so that they can actually scale up into full corporations. Mm-hmm. But such policies allow the growth of small businesses, which then go on to create employment. But even for the countries that have these policies are not implemented. There's an interesting survey that you may want to look at, which is called the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor. This is a very big survey that normally looks at how entrepreneurial activities are happening in different countries. When you look at that survey done here in Africa around 2013, you are going to realize that one of the challenges to the development of small businesses, which are a great driver in creating employment, is that there are no policies to support these small businesses. And later on, even in countries where you have these policies, they are not properly implemented. And probably the last one I would want to highlight is rapid population growth. Our population is growing at a rate way faster than the rate at which our economies are growing. For example, if you look at fertility here in Africa, it's very high, standing at 4 children per every woman, okay? Per every woman. And yet, if you are going to look at this in comparison with the global rates stand at 2.5. It is estimated that we are going to see the population of Africa doubling by 2050, from the current about 1.5 billion to about 2.5 billion. The question is, as our population is growing that fast, do we see our economies also growing in a way that matches that growth to create employment? So population expansion is also something that is leading to unemployment. So those are some of the factors that are at play in terms of the rise in unemployment.
Okay, so 2 key things that you have thrown up. Investment in key sectors on the continent seems to be a problem. So industrialization hasn't even, found its place on the continent and in our economies. So side by side, I'm going to ask you to talk about investment in key sectors and the fact that Africa, especially if you look at West Africa, use Nigeria as case study, there's a really strong tilt to entrepreneurship, which now seems to be doing most of the employment of the unemployed ratio, as opposed to wage employment, people that can receive pension and the like. So when we look at these two things, lack of investment and the springing up of entrepreneurship, where and how can we find a good balance for all of this?
Okay. Well, I should mention that these two are able to play together. What needs to be done is to create an enabling environment for both. So on one side, if we look at entrepreneurship, we have good policies that are being created, integration of regions. We know of the Africa Free Trade, area that has been created in the map to allow for countries actually to trade with each other. That is very good. But what we should highlight within this is that it is important that countries come up with development agencies, local development agencies, whose purpose is focused mainly at developing the local entrepreneurs. If you look at certain economies, for example, China, you look at India, you look at Singapore, you look at Israel, you are going to realize that these countries have invested into systems and policies that develop their local entrepreneurs. They have created innovation hubs, as an example. These are some of the things that can be done within our local countries. Create local innovation hubs that can provide incubation, services, accelerator programs to support the local entrepreneurs. Because one of the leading causes of failure in terms of business for small and medium enterprises is actually a lack of entrepreneurial skills. Away from other factors such as lack of access to, capital and financing, but also just the skills. An average entrepreneur may not be very well vested in issues of management, in issues of strategy, in issues of marketing, and many other things. So we can actually support the local entrepreneurs, and this will create employment. Now, we need to strike a balance between supporting the local entrepreneurs and creating an environment that brings in investors. Because remember, many of the companies that come in as foreign direct investment, these investors definitely are coming from countries away from Africa. And this is where we realize that when they have established themselves, they have industrialized, there are capital flights in terms of money flying out of Africa. Much as they may create employment, on the other side, we should understand that unemployment is a secondary problem. We do not want to get in a space where we only have the jobs that the minerals are going out of Africa. We only have the jobs that our timber is going out. We only have the jobs but our coffee is going out. So a balance must be struck between bringing in investment and supporting the local businesses.
Okay. Just two things before we wrap up. Labor standards on the continent is a major problem. For the more developed economies on the continent, maybe you're talking about stable economies like Rwanda, and maybe for some, lack of better examples, Nigeria is also doing well economically if you exempt the last 1 year activity, but we have a good trajectory. What do you think about labor standards on the continent? Are we doing well with the laws and policies guiding us? What can our lawmakers do better?
Yes, actually, that is another very important issue that should be addressed. When you look at a number of surveys published by the International Labour Organization, you are going to realize that labor standards are very low. Majority of our youths especially are more passionate about youths, and majority of our youths are employed in the informal sector. Many of these, what they get is below what would be the minimum wage actually for the countries in which they work. Every country establishes what its minimum wage is going to be. But when you move into these local economies, you're going to realize that many people are getting paid what is below the minimum wage. And you're also going to realize that a number of people that are working in much of our industry, and unfortunately, sometimes even from very big multinationals that come in, issues of safety, for example, are not met. If you go in some of these mines and industries that are on the continent, those that are working in oil companies, you're going to realize that our people, our youth, are being subjected to health hazards in terms of occupational safety that is very low. So we need to look at actually standards and ensure that this is actually harmonized with what is obtaining on the global labor market. It is unfortunate that sometimes companies that are paying people very well in terms of in Europe and other places, when they come here in Africa, they are paying people peanuts. And this is where we need to strengthen our labor organizations within the different countries in which we are. This calls for leadership within countries. This calls for labor movements. It is very important that labor movements, unions are strengthened within working environments and organizations. The people that are working are affiliated with these organizations that can look and ensure that the standards of work speak to a decent life.
All right, then, just before I let you go, I'd like to take a word for, African youth. Usually, in the space of all that we are experiencing, what approach should an African youth take now? If you've also followed the conversation, in Nigeria, we call it the Japa syndrome. Everybody wants to move to Europe. We have a lot of cases for sinking ships off the coast because people are trying to get to Europe for better life and all the likes. And also the conversation of disguised employment where it's not affecting the economic aggregate of each country. What position should African youth, the productive population, be taking now? How can we ready ourselves for future jobs?
That's a great one. We need to understand that the greatest resource that Africa actually has is its human resource. Okay, one of the books I love is a book titled The Challenge for Africa by Wangari Maathai. And in there, actually highlights the same thing. The greatest resource that Africa has is its people. And this could be explained even at a physiological level. An African is wired to survive. We can survive the harshest of... You're going to compare Africans in terms of ethnicity and their body physiology. You're going to realize that we are wired to survive anything. But again, when you come to demographics, you're going to realize that the current median age of Africa stands at 19.2 years. That means that on average, Africa has more youths than elderly people. What does that mean? The future is Africa. If you're going to look at the demographic distribution, Africa's distribution actually is a pyramid, which is standing. Okay, at the base, you have youths and very few elderly people at the top. Europe has an inverted pyramid in terms of its demographic. Very few youths, and literally the top there are elderly people. This means that everybody is looking to Africa. And while African youths are thinking of leaving Africa and going to Europe, Europe is coming to Africa. Europe is coming to Africa because Africa has arable land. Europe is coming to Africa because Africa has the freshwater bodies. Europe is coming to Africa because Africa has the right climate for agriculture. Europe is coming to Africa because Africa has the minerals. Europe is coming to Africa because Africa has cheap labor. Now, this is what African youths should actually target to tap into. They should begin to look at how do you strategically position yourself for a new world order that is coming, and that order is where Africa is going to be in the lead. Africa, in terms of, even when you look at natural resources, in terms of drug development, we have all the things that are needed for drug development in terms of plants from which we can extract all of these things. We can run manufacturing plants right here on Africa. There's integration that is happening, like I said, of regions now. ECOWAS, SADC, and all of these are integrating into a single market. So Africa is the future. Now, what are the things that an African youth should do to make himself relevant? This globalization that is happening has advantages and it has disadvantages. The advantage is that you have access to markets beyond your current market, wherever you are, whether in Egypt, in Somalia, in Nigeria, in Niger, wherever you are. But the disadvantage is that this is going to open you to competition beyond the local competition that you have had. So every African youth should ask themselves a question to say, am I competitive beyond my immediate local environment? Or I only have skills which make me competitive amidst my peers within my immediate locality. So there are skills that African youths must begin to develop. One of them are digital skills, because the digital revolution is here, okay, 4.0. We are talking of artificial intelligence. We are talking of robotics. We are talking of the Internet of all things. These are things that young Africans must invest themselves in. But other lines that African youths can think about are issues of talent development. One of the things you're going to realize very quickly is that an African generally is very talented. So young people must harness their talents in terms of athletics, in terms of, football and whatever it is. But young people can look at that. Young people should also look at networking. If you're in Nigeria, can you begin to formulate networks in Zambia? If you're in Zambia, can you network with your fellow youths in Cote d'Ivoire? If you are in Mali, can you network with those that are in Eswatini? Because we are getting to where you can be seated in Eswatini but selling things in Algeria. You can be in Algeria selling courses in Namibia. So young people must position themselves in such a way. What often worries me is that I tend to realize that majority of our youths are more inclined towards entertainment. They are more inclined towards entertainment. And there is little that is happening in terms of self-development. Much of our young people are okay with simply getting a qualification and saying, I have a degree, I have a master's, or I have a PhD, even when they have not learned how to monetize those qualifications that they have. But now is the time to look beyond mere qualifications to begin building competences and skills that are relevant for such a time as this. Sometimes when we run even adverts as a company, in our companies, we see applicants applying all the way from India, much of them from India and Asia. But I don't see applications coming from Cameroon. I don't see applications coming from, West Africa, to what we are advertising. But how is it that the youths of India are following issues to the level that they can make applications and compete for jobs in Zambia, and yet the youths from the next door country, Namibia, don't even know that there are such opportunities? So young people must be deliberate. They must run away from a dependence syndrome. And when I'm talking about dependence syndrome now, I am talking about some hangover of colonialism that built an African into thinking that the government will always provide solutions for your personal problem. So young people must begin thinking of how they are co-partners with their governments in developing themselves. Personal development.
Right.
Thank you.
All right, great conversation that we've had with you. Very key points: self-development, monetization of qualification, and being patriotic to stand with our government to develop our continent. Great words. Thank you so much, Dr. Daniel Kabani, for coming on the show today and really giving us a food for thought with regards to employment on the continent. It's been a great conversation. Do enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much. You have a lovely day.
All right, then.
To all viewers.
Of course, author, entrepreneur, pharmacist, and business developer. Great conversation that we've had, but that's the much we can take on Spotlight Africa today, bringing you information all around the continent. Let's do this again some other time. I am Uyai MM. Enjoy the rest of your day.
The hustle is real, but with hard work, you can become successful. and be your own king. Your wins are worth celebrating with Chelsea London Dry Gin. Chelsea London Dry Gin now comes in a non-refillable bottle with guala cap. Chelsea London Dry Gin. Right spirit, right feeling.
Wow, wow, wow. Amazing stuff. I know you are thrilled by what you've seen on your screen. And of course, sitting next to me is the man himself, the inventor of Ubokobong, the first ever African skin biorobotic hand. Good to have you, Ubokobong Amanam. Welcome to the show. Of course, he's here, and I'm amazed. And when I saw this online, and I was like, wow, this is amazing, having such a thing happen in this city, in Nigeria. This it totally blew my mind away, and I said, no, you have to be on Tech Insight, and it's good. It's good you are here today. So let's get to it. Ubokobong, let's get to the basics. How did you come about all of this? What was the story like? So how did this whole journey begin?
My story, or this journey started years back when I had an accident. I lost like 3 of my fingers due to a fireworks explosion that was on New Year's Eve. So and it really made me feel bad. I was really depressed because I needed an artificial finger to replace the missing ones. And unlucky for me, the doctor told me there is no place in the world that you can get
artificial fingers.
Yes, that match my skin color, because I needed something that actually looks exactly like my missing fingers, because I was feeling a little bit different from society.
Exactly.
Yeah, I wasn't born this way, so it was a new normal to me, and that messed with me psychologically. Wow. So I really needed a replacement for it. So that made my brother John Amanam. He went into research on it.
So he basically went into research because of the situation that was at hand.
Yes, that was what inspired him to go into the production of hyper-realistic prostheses. Yes. So when he solved my problem by giving me and by producing an artificial finger that matched my skin tone, medically called prosthesis. So he saw that was a very big
unexplored field.
Yes.
So producing your prosthetic finger was the first.
Yes.
Was the first
that
project.
Was the first project he did. Yeah. So that inspired him, and he saw more that there is a very big gap in society, especially people living with disabilities
and prostheses.
Yes, because it's one thing to have a prosthesis, and one thing to have a prosthesis that
matches your skin
tone. Yeah, and a black man for that matter.
That was one of the things that caught my attention. The fact that like it's made customized. That when you see these skins,
yeah,
you won't even tell the difference between
yes.
the one that is artificial and the person's natural skin. But amazing stuff. Let's talk about the design of the Ubokobong arm. How has the journey been like from the thoughts? You know, your brother did yours and then started his company, and you guys started making these prosthetic designs. But there's something different about the one you invented, the Ubokobong biorobotic arm.
Yeah.
What was the journey like creating Ubokobong?
Okay, I would say two things inspired me. One, my brother, because when he made when he began the production of hyperrealistic prosthesis, so that was just for cosmetics, for aesthetics.
Yeah.
So there was a need for functionality. So that was what gave birth to Ubokobong. And also a few years back, as I said earlier, the doctor told me that I can't get an artificial finger anywhere. And if I'm to get anyone, which is a robotic finger,
yeah,
I'll have to go to Germany to go a surgery
yeah,
for it. Yeah, so and he asked me if I'm ready to spend the rest of my life on drugs. So I'll be taking drugs
to supplement the surgery.
Yes, so that my nerves won't react to the electrodes and all that stuff.
Interesting.
So it was something I wasn't ready to bear. So I just had to let go. So, but now with the invention of the Ubokobong, you could actually have an artificial robotic body part that you don't need to go for surgery. It's detachable.
Yeah.
So it's 100% controlled by the wearer.
So I saw there's something about the Ubokobong in the sense that it can move, it can sense, the fingers can move. I don't know if we can have the video on screen where you can see the model, the lady, she was able to pick things with the finger, touch things and do all of that. Yes. So what mechanism went into that?
Okay. When a person lost his or her body parts, because myself, I really used myself as an experiment in this research too, because I have lost a body part. So when a body part is amputated, the brain still sends signals
to that part of the body.
Yes. Wow. That's one of the.
So you can see she's able to still run because if you have one limb, you won't be able to run.
You're not able to balance.
For her to be able to run, that means there's a balance.
Yes, there is a balance because it was, and also this is one of the most slickest bionics you'll find anywhere in the world.
Wow.
Normally, bionics are boogers.
Yeah,
the ones
exactly.
you find abroad, the whites, the ones they produce are boogers. But this follow the shape of the other of her hand, so it's very.
So did you have to take her details, measure her hand before you went into the production of this?
Yeah, it's a very complex process. It's not a.
So it's not like the normal process. You just go out there, buy a prosthetic hand and put on.
No, this is a special kind of bionics. So as I said earlier, those signals that are sent from the brain to those missing body parts, even though they are not, because the brain doesn't know that those parts are not there.
Yes. So the brain still sends signal to those parts of the body.
That is one of the reasons why sometimes amputees experience what we call phantom limbs, where they feel like that part is still there, but it's not there. So they have that feeling is the brain still sending signals. So what this bionic does is it picks those signals and transform them into motion. The amputee can can control the hand when and when.
So it has to work with the brain.
Yes, you have to work with the brain and your muscle and your nerves too.
So is there a kind of electricity sounding? So that someone will not put on that and then there's a shock or a spark?
No. It's very lightweight. It's rechargeable. It's powered through Type-C.
Amazing stuff. It's powered, so you have to recharge it.
Yes. You have to charge it, but it lasts it can last up to more than two days.
Wow.
Yes,
so the charging is for the sensitivity and all of that.
It is battery powered.
Battery powered. Yes. So that makes me begin to consider: is it going to be more like heavy on the wearer?
No. It's very light. That's why she's able to run. She's able to slice things. She does everything comfortably. So it's not the kind of bionics you find outside. It's special. So this is one of the reasons that shows that here in Africa we could do it. We could do anything. Everything is possible here in Africa. It's just about believing in yourself that you can do it. Yes, you can.
Wow. Let's go on a break, and when we return, more interesting conversation coming right here on Tech Insights. Welcome back. It's Tech Insight here on Spectrum TV. Amazing conversation I'm having right here with Ubok Obok Amanam, the inventor of the first ever African realistic skin robotic hand. And he's right here with me. And amazing stuff you've said so far. I would like to ask, did you experience what were some of the challenges you experienced in the process of creating this innovation?
Okay.
In Africa, it's actually swimming against the tide when you're trying to come up with something new and all of that. What are some of the challenges you experienced on your journey so far?
Yeah, I would say every step is a challenge because you're doing something that have not been done before. So it's definitely a challenge. Every step, no matter how little the process is, there's always a challenge every time. So I have so many challenges.
Yeah.
And starting from the design to even putting it out every step.
Okay. Were you at some point kind of will this work? How will people see this? Did you have that kind of feeling at any point in time?
No, I didn't care what people say because I knew what
you already saw the finished product in your mind.
Yes. I believed in myself. Now I knew that I was going to do this.
I need this your kind of motivation. I need this your kind of motivation.
Yeah,
amazing. This Uborobong what impacts do you feel it's going to make for African amputees? And is it just only for hands, arms, or are you going to expand into other parts of the body, limbs, and all of that?
Yes. Research is ongoing on how to go into production of robotic legs. We have robotic hands with upper limb amputations, those from the shoulder.
For this Uborobong arm, like from where? From
below the elbow.
From below the elbow.
Yes, but we'll soon launch the one for above the elbow. So it's a process. Everything is a process. So what Uborobong will do? Uborobong will bring comfort and hope to so many.
Like I could see the lady, see the way she was smiling, she was so happy, and this is not even the final.
Yeah,
this is not even the final outlook of it.
Yes, the final outlook of it. Actually, you won't tell the difference between and so on. So you have the bionics that have fingerprints, nails,
and the fingerprint is actually would actually be real fingerprint.
Yeah, you could actually see it. It's to have, let's say, I don't want to sound like God, but I would say you have like a bionics that has like, let's say, 80% physical human feature. So
features.
Yes, features. So you have nails, hairs, whatever thing you can imagine how the physical human hand will look like. Uborobong will actually have that.
Wow.
So we are Ubobong will bring comfort, as I said earlier. Yeah, because it's like what you see in the movie. You're actually using it. Yeah, because before this time, the technology have not really focused on what Africans really want. Yeah, so it's time we look within
and solve our own problems. And the fact that we are solving our own problems by ourselves.
Yes, because we keep relying on the West. We will be this way for forever.
And the person that brings the solution, the one who is being served will be the servant to the one that's bringing the solution.
Yeah, and these guys, the West don't really care so much about us when it comes to technology. So,
reality.
Yes,
reality.
We have to build our own technology. So this is it.
This is
building our own technology. So this is not just for me, but it's for Africa.
For Africa.
Yeah, and all the black skin. Yeah, it's around the world.
Wow. When are we expecting? I know this is not the final outlook of the Ubobong arm.
Yeah.
When are we expecting the final launch, the unveiling of the final outlook?
Yes.
If this like this, it's making so much sense how it is like this. I can only imagine what it would be like. The final outlook would be like.
Yeah, and me too. I can't wait to see it.
Well, you already know what it is. You're the one creating it. You're the one creating it because you are just like a creator. You don't want to be like God, but just like God. Before God said, "Let there be," He already had it in His mind, and you get. So now you're already projecting the final outlook of the Ubobong arm, and like what's it going to be like?
Yeah, let me reserve my comment till that day.
Amazing stuff. And then, what would be your word to encourage? I know there are people out there watching us across Africa and the rest of the world. What would be your word to someone? The most amazing fact about your story is the fact that it came out of a place of disadvantage. You had an accident, lost your fingers, and today we have something that is going to affect the whole of Africa and the black race. What would be your word to someone out there?
Yes, for those who are feeling bad, feeling like they can't achieve their dreams, and I would say keep believing in yourself. Yeah, because you must first believe in yourself before someone else believes in you. Yeah, so it's going to be tough. Definitely, life is full of challenges. We should focus more on the solutions rather than the problems, because the more you focus on the solutions, it will automatically open ways naturally.
And does it mean that most of great things come out of our problems? Because if you did not have this problem, you and your brother may not have been here today.
Yes, that's true. Like they say, necessity
is the mother of invention.
Yes. That's also another key point we need to focus to in technology in Africa. We need to look at what is necessary.
In the society. Yes. Look at the problems we have, because Africa has so much problems, and that means this is where technology needs to thrive, because there are so much problems to be solved.
Yes, technology. Wow. Yeah. So we need to be very specific about the kind of technology we invest into. Yeah, because we have so many problems in Africa that only technology can solve. Yeah.
Amazing. As we conclude the conversation today on the show, you've heard from Ubobong Amanam, and it's good for you to be reminded that innovation is not just about the technology. It's about people providing solutions that are tailored to meet the needs of the people out there. It's about creating solutions that empower, inspire, and transform life, just as we've had the story of Ubobong Amanam. Thank you so much for being on the show today, and we are looking forward to the launch, the final unveiling of the bionic robotic hand.
Shout out to Spectrum TV. Also.
Yes, of course. We'll be following up on this with Tech Insight, bringing you updates until the final unveiling of that product and that innovation. Thank you so much for watching this episode of the show. Do well to catch up on this conversation on our YouTube channel, Spectrum Television, as well as other conversations previously had on this show. My name is Samuel And until I come your way again next time on another episode of the show, keep being the best. Bye for now.
The hustle is real, but with hard work, you can become successful. And be your own king. Your wins are worth celebrating with Chelsea London Dry Gin. Chelsea London Dry Gin now comes in a non-refillable bottle with guala cap. Chelsea London Dry Gin. Right spirit, right feeling.